let's get this bag done. Okay, so I went ahead and created the bottom for the bag. I made it using the same cord that I did on the top. I did 25 stitches, and then on the ends of the first row I did 3 single crochets. On the second row I did 2 crochets in each of those 3, and then on the third row I did 2 single crochets in each of those 6, giving me 24. And then the rest of the rows I just did 1 single crochet in everything until I managed to make the bottom of the bag hopefully big enough, and it did turn out to be big enough. It might have even been a little bit too big, but I made it work. So not really too much to it. I just did 2 to 3 single crochets in each of the bottom of the pop tabs. It just kind of depended on what did it depend on, Laurie? It depended on how much room I had to work with, is basically what it depended on. And it took some doing. That cord was not easy to work with. It was kind of a pain in the butt, especially on the first one. It really pulled funny, and it looks a little awkward, but I figure if that's the back of the purse, then nobody needs to know that Laurie did that, right? So we finally get it in there. If I make this again, and I've got somebody who has said they're going to start collecting pop tabs for me, so if I make this again, I'm definitely going to find a different type of cord or thread to use besides this. This had a waxy finish to it, and it just made it difficult to work with. It was so hard on my hands, and when you got arthritis in the palms of the hands and you're trying so hard to work with this, my hands were aching by the time I was done. So if I do this, well, I will be doing this again. When I do this again, I will find something that will be a lot easier to maneuver, like a crochet thread instead of a nylon cord. I'd also like to figure out a way to make it so that there aren't so many knots on the inside of it. I am, like I have said before, I am not good at sewing, and so I don't know how to make a liner for the inside of it, but I think I could teach myself how. So if when I do this again, I keep saying if, when I do this again, I will look into maybe getting some magnetic closures for the purse and see about making a liner, and that might make a huge bit of difference. So you can see me struggling here, but I'm starting to pick up a little bit of speed. This is at 2 times the regular speed, so I was even slower than this trying to get it done. But I did determine that it was good to put 3 single crochets in each of the pop tabs, simply because it filled up the bottom so much better. And so even if I had to double up on one of the stitches in the bottom, that's what I did. I should be skipping along here soon. You don't have to watch me struggle through the entire bottom. So I went back to the Erica's, oh, I can't remember her thing now. I went back to Erica's site and I looked for a handle to do, and she did have one that I gave a good try to. I wish I had put some more pop tabs in there and made it a little bit longer, but like I said, my hands were just aching by this time, and so trying to finish it out ended up being a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. But if I when I do this again, geez, Laurie, when I do this again, I will give myself more time. And like I said, I'll work with a thread that's a little bit more malleable, and that should make it easier to maneuver. And I will be able to make one that's long enough to go over the shoulder. Really, I just made one that was long enough to hand hold. And the way that she described doing it was to make it, because hers, the tutorial that I found had it in a circular pattern, and it was like a circle bag, and so it went along the entire rim of the bag all the way around, and then up into the handle itself. And then she crochets a certain part without any pop tabs, because it really does make it stiff, and so you don't want that necessarily going over your shoulder or having to hold that with your hand. And so I did the same thing as well, and so that's kind of what you'll see me do. There we go, I finally skipped ahead and I'm on my last 2 pop tabs. So the handle that I do is a very what's the word I want? It's a small version of what she had done around her bag, because mine didn't need to go all the way around. So we'll explain it more when I get to it. But here I am on the last pop tab, and then what I'll do is just do a slip stitch into the first chain, or the single, oh my goodness, the first single crochet that I did on that first pop tab. And so it doesn't come together beautifully, but it's not exactly horrible either. Sorry, every time I go off camera, it was such a challenge to work with and to keep my eyeballs on, and trying to get that thread to go back up into the bag was almost impossible. I really wish I had been able to do a liner in this. The cord, the black cord as well as the blue cord, was just near impossible. But anyways, I got it in there, and the bag itself is done as far as I'm concerned. So now we'll move on to, like magic, there's our pop tabs, and I'm doing the same kind of color order that I did, well, with the bag itself. So we start with the pink, go to the purple, then the red, and then the orange. And I'm doing a silver one in between each of them. I'll add a silver one to the end of the orange one, and that gives me enough to make it, to at least make a small handle. And of course I started off camera. There we go. So I'm putting 2 single crochets in the side, in one side of the pop tabs, and layering them so that the new color goes behind what's already there. That way it kind of hides. If you notice on the pop tabs, there's a more finished edge, and then there's an almost unfinished edge, because that's where the pop tab was taken off of the can, or a rough edge, I should say. So I'm putting the rough edge at the back so that it doesn't cut in to anything. And then the crochet thread, the cord itself, kind of gives a buffer, is what I'm trying to think of. So I'm going through all of these, and we're almost building this backwards. So I'm going up through the colors, and then what we're going to do is crochet around the end of it to create a finished edge, and that's the edge that we will sew onto the bag. So I'm finishing with the orange, and then that's when I make the decision to add one more silver. You'll see me pull out. See, yep, there's one, and there's one. So I decide to pull out the silver. I was a little worried at first because it was pulling so much to the crocheted side. I didn't know if by going over the other side if it would straighten out or not, but it does. So now I do, I think, around 5 or 6 single crochets in that more refined, less rough, the smooth edge. And then we're just going to go back over the other side. And we'll do 2 single crochets in each of those edges as well. And as you can see, it does start to straighten out. It was a lot stiffer than I thought it would be, and I think that has so much to do with the cord. I had to hold it so tight that the crocheting itself ended up being really tight. And so there's not a lot of give to it, which is another reason why I decided to do that flexible, that handheld part with just the crochet cord. So now I'm going to go ahead and do, I think I do another 6 crochets here. There's 4, 5, and do I do one more? We just don't know. I was doing something. Okay, no, I just do 5. And then I slip stitch to the first one. And then I'm going to chain 1 and turn it around. And then I do either 4 or 5 single crochets back across. And that's going to be the basis for our handle. And then what I'll do is just keep doing those 4 or 5 single crochets back and forth until I have a handle that's long enough to really hold. Move those out of the way because I kept hitting them with the cord. So I've done a couple rows there, and I'm going to skip ahead. So it's about 4 or 5 inches long. And now you're going to watch me struggle trying to get this, figure out how to get this on here. Because I was trying not to do it backwards, and I think I did it backwards and I had to undo it. There we go. I just skipped ahead because I struggled a little bit more. Now you'll see I'm able to get it on there. And I do it this way and then I flip it up. There we go. And then I just start going across the edge. We've had plumbing problems at my house. So for the last 2 days, we've had 2 young men working on our plumbing. It's not easy dealing with, I don't know if you guys know what a swamp cooler is, but a swamp cooler is good in especially desert areas. It's not as expensive as central air. And it, so basically water is taken up to the actual swamp cooler unit, which is on the roof, and then it soaks the pads. There are 4 pads around it because it's like a big cube, and then a wheel kind of turns and acts like a fan and draws in air through those wet pads and blows it into the house, and so it helps cool the house that way. And so yesterday we had to, because of the plumbing issues we were having, we had to have the water turned off, and it got up to almost 90 degrees Fahrenheit in our house. It was so hot. Both my daughter and I were just feeling sick. We don't handle heat well, and so neither one of us was doing so good. But they got it done, and everything runs beautifully now. I even figured out how to turn the new units for the washer, not the units, the pipes for the washer on, so that it works again. And oh, it's just a relief to have it done. Okay, so we're coming to the end of this batch. Now I'm just going to do my 5 to 6 crochets across the bottom of this, and then we'll work our way back up the other side. I'd actually like to try making a purse, kind of crocheting it this way back and forth. I'm not quite sure how I'd do that, but that would be a lot neater on the inside, so that I wouldn't necessarily have to worry about doing a liner, because the other one just left so many ends to it that it's just messy. But I have yet to find a pattern that would make something like that work, or that would teach me how to do that. I guess I could try to figure it out myself, but that would require brain power, and it's too hot for brain power right now. Anna agrees. Okay, so we're coming back up to the end, and so I'm just going to do a couple more crochets and then slip stitch into that end piece. Sadly, the hardest part of trying to do that handle wasn't even the sewing, it was trying to tuck in this end. Because it's a cord, it came apart so easy. Those threads, you know, because it's like 3 separate threads that go together to form the cord. They came apart so easily. It was unreal trying to get them to tuck in to each other. Okay, so now I'm going to inexpertly sew the handle on, and there's just no good way of making it happen, but I did my best. So I'm just sewing into the crocheted part of the cord. I apologize, I think I managed to move it in the camera, but I may not have, I don't know. But I basically sew around, just around that end piece that we created. There, see? I think I did the other side, and then I just fast forwarded to this side. So it's almost done. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing me create this. This was awfully fun. I'd like to try it again, but I'm going to have to save up a lot more pop tabs. So I guess that's a lot more kickstarts for me. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's Diet Coke. In any case, I hope that you all have a great day. Make it a great day. Make it a great week. And we'll see you next week for a new project I got in the mail today. I'm super excited to give it a try. And in any case, I just love you guys, and you take care. All right. Bye-bye.